Meeting of the Finance Standing Committee is called order at 10:59 a.m. on January 21st, 2026. Thanks everyone for bearing with us for technical difficulties. This meeting is being recorded but not live streamed. Alderman O'Neill, present.
Present.
Alderman Thorpe,
Present.
Alderman Nutley's here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Excellent. Next, we have the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the January 7th, 2026 Finance Meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Beautiful. All right. We only have one piece of legislation today, then we've got a couple pieces of general discussion. But the main piece of legislation says water service agreement with Ward Point Property LLC. Director Bogo, you here for that?
I'm here for that.
Okay, thank you. This letter, are you also here for that? Or do you just hear?
I drafted it.
Oh, okay. So, well, I'll let you sit down before I start asking you questions. Worth call. So, thank you for being here. I know, in a way, this is kind of very straightforward, the extended water service, but I think my question is, in other cases where we have extended water service, we've annexed properties. That's my sense. And so, can you guys validate for me if that is correct? Are there examples where we're extending water service without annexing them in the past? And then why are we choosing to do it in this way?
Okay, it is generally our preference to annex as opposed to dual water service. There are exceptions. On Bay Ridge Road, McDonald's would be one of those exceptions. Also, the shopping center where the Little is, I think that would be on Forest at Old Solomon's. That's another. In this instance, if you look at the city boundaries in that area, you already have this very odd looking cutout of county that would just become even more restricted. And I think for an individual, this is probably a precedent of just showing as the individual homeowner actually to be connected to the city's water. Typically, we're dealing with commercial elements.
And so, so the reason for not wanting to annex is just to make the shit even weirder?
Yes, you see almost a very tiny strip. In fact, it might even isolate the areas of the city that are along Blackwell Road.
Yeah.
Which would be illegal. Right. Yeah, you can't have a non-contiguous portions. But that's not very expertise.
Yeah. Wait, so I'm sorry, and maybe this is I'm not seeing this map immediately, but you're saying that it would isolate, how could expanding city property isolate part of the city? Or are you saying it would isolate part of the county? Or maybe it's not both there.
It'd be isolate part of town.
Oh, okay. Right. Sorry. That makes sense. Yeah.
If I may, the other thing that you're asking about annexing, like why it'll be annexed.
Yeah.
So my understanding from Chris Kubiak from Planning and Zoning is that in order for a property to be eligible to be annexed at all, it has to be within the planned municipal growth boundary as defined in the comp plan, and these properties are not. So we would have to actually amend the comp plan in order to make it eligible for annexation.
Gotcha. All right, that's helpful. Another question I had for you is, this is the fiscal note of Alice said basically it's a wash. We're not going to visit anybody, you're not going to get anybody. Says use to recoup these costs is so later. I'd be curious to hear if there's any share on that. But what I'm curious on is if properties outside city limits pay triple what we're charging properties within city limits. Does that mean that normally we're losing a bunch of money on making water connections if they're inside the city? Shouldn't we try and have a fee of money making it better for us? That's what I'm getting at.
I'm sure it is.
Okay.
The fiscal impact of the city will be positive.
Okay. That's good to know. All right, you guys have any questions? Over with you. I feel like I don't understand what the argument for this is from the siege for China. Like they're saying, somebody came to us, I said, hey, can you do this for us? I'm not clear what goal the city says I should fit. Other than being a nice thing. If it's a big positive fiscal effect, then that sounds like that's a good reason. But I feel like maybe I'm missing something. Considering like
Our cost is down.
Okay. No, say that again.
It costs us nothing. A resident wants to use an actual existing water main that provides city water to all of Chesapeake Harbor. And then you have a steel family owner who wants to connect to that water. They have to do the construction else. So the cost of the city would incur the billing and local metering, or what's more than their business. You are correct. He's us being in some ways an educator, and then perhaps there's benefits in having people not the less laws about it.
Got it. Okay, that's enough for me. I think what I'm hearing from you is by expanding the area we're covering, we don't have any costs. We're getting more people paying to our water treatment system that helps city ratepayers, and also we're minimizing the impact on the water. So that's good to me. Any last questions? All right.
Make a motion to give a fair warrant application for our 26.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks, guys. Thank you. The director vote, you want to say we go to CIP update next? Or someone else if you rather we do finance update first?
We're going to set the update, but I'm not expecting this.
Okay. Well then, I guess I was just asking for, I thought we were gonna have a presentation you told me. Honestly, why don't we, let's delay this to a future path. I think it would be more effective for all of us if we could say, let's get Tony ready about how our CIP project's doing, what progress we made to pass the budget, and that we can come prepared with questions. So unless I hear otherwise from my colleagues, I say let's put a pin in this until.
So for the next meeting, what is it you're looking for?
Yeah, so I think what we want to hear is a mid-year update on completion of the CIP.
A three-year update on all of the projects.
Yeah, which I know is a big ask. Maybe we could go through and kind of ask you for some more targeted ones, or particular ones. Would you be willing?
More targeted projects would be really good.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You say something? Yeah. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I think if everything's on track, we don't need to talk about it. But the ones that are ahead significantly, behind significantly, things we should know about, I think that's what my interest is.
Yeah. So maybe sort of a very broad overview of if we have 140 series, but there are a lot of one other conflict. Being able to say 28% are on track, 10% are below spending, 50% are above spending, something like that at the top level, and then dig into the ones that are off track with documents. Does that seem reasonable? Too helpful?
How about after this? Because financially on track is a question that's difficult to define because you cannot submit certain schedules.
Right.
But what I can do is give something that's on track relative to the last sales that we submitted in the budget. As for instance, it will say that design in fact to start in FY 2026. Are we on track to start design in FY 2026 to start? So I just follow milestones that's in budget that we saw in the review.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in reviewing the milestones and at what pace to be spending the money.
Okay.
Is that in line with your criteria?
Yeah, a lot of it's judgment. A lot of it's, hey, this is what the city council needs to know about. But we don't need you to spend a lot of effort to prepare on things that are on track, that are tracking things like
Right.
that. But things that are that you think the council should know about that are behind, whatever that means to you, or ahead, whatever that means to you. That's what my head is, based on data, based on, you know.
Sure. No, I can believe it. That's just.
Thank you. I think part of this discussion came from our last meeting when we were talking about just Picturos Museum, and we were shifting funds over to the parking lot, but in looking at that particular CIQ project, actual work on that is not slated to even happen until 2027 for the rest of that project. And so that started generating.
Right, that basically for something that is being accelerated, but we're asking to accelerate something.
Right, and so that started generating a lot of questions as far as why is it that we're going to do one part of it now and then wait for 2 years to do another part of it, but is on our CIP project list, and are there other projects such as that, and what's the determination as to they're moving forward, and why are we doing a little part now, not just doing the whole thing to avoid keeping it under construction for 3 years, basically.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And hope the project meeting as well. So here, all right. Only got left. It's an update from finance department, our regular acting finance director update, and particularly to hear Mr. Director about, or Mr. Acting Director about the replacement for the deputy and how that's going.
Sure. Let's start with staffing updates. We are actively interviewing for that position still. Hopefully, we will finalize that soon. We are also, there's a cashier position that's open that we are also interviewing for right now as well. And then, as far the other thing that we're working on is trying to finalize the ACFR. We are also sorry you don't really get into the thick of things of all free budget. And just choose the look downstairs.
Or Orlando, your this might be the right virtual time. One of the things we were talking about, I was talking about with the city manager yesterday, is making sure we're right sizing the CID projects and the expectations for those. Can you speak to a little more what the process is for you? We talked about the secret briefly, like what the process is for how we come up with those estimates. Something I thought about after you finish our MC is actually how we come up if we think that we're spent $100,000 on design in FY26, and then we're trying to project out with store construction. How do you come up with these construction estimates? What does that reflect right now? And our opportunities. Sorry, well, that would be a bit of a better question for Brian.
Yeah, that's okay. I will do my best. So the construction estimates depend a little bit upon what we're talking about and where we are in the design process. Obviously, for things that we build more often, right, we've got a regular CIP around roads and stuff like that. Those are great. We know how much those things cost because we do it a lot. For things that we do less often, that depends upon how complete the design is, right? And with the goal of those numbers, further you are in the design process, the more solid those numbers are. As we know, one of the things that the city has faced over the last several years on a number of our CIP projects is that they've been delayed for a variety of reasons. We had situations where it turns out there was a lot of negotiating that needed to happen with property owners or their easements or other things that needed to happen. And so part of the process for the CIP is essentially a check-in of where are we? We thought we were going to be this far along. Are we or not? And what does that timeline look like now? So there's a bit of truing up that's always part of that process. We're doing a much more in-depth conversation. So we sit down with all of the departments that are involved in the CIP to really try and get at those questions. And it is a conversation. How solid are those numbers? What's the likelihood that you're actually going to be able to execute on this in the next 18 months? And then, from there, it's really just, from there, then it ends up being a question of what can we afford, right? So, do I add anything to that? So like I said, it's a process we do every year. We're just trying to do a particularly in-depth job this year of right-sizing that. I know I've said that to this body before, that I understand the frustration over it's in the budget, but why aren't we moving on it, right? And some of that is an acknowledgement and being realistic with ourselves and transparently realistic with you guys about what really is the implementation timeline. And the budget should reflect that. And I think one of the shifts in the mental pattern, both inside the city staff and with council, is that, let's say we've got a project and we're in one of those situations. We've run into some difficulties. We're not going to be spending in the next year. We may de-appropriate previous money. That doesn't mean that we're not doing the project. It doesn't mean the city's not interested in the project or committed to the project. What we're trying to do is to align those things in time. And I think that there's a little bit of a mental shift of that having that money available now represents this commitment, and that somehow that commitment goes away if the current money goes away. But that's not what that means, right? And so I think there's a little bit of a shift that having these discussions helps spur.
May I spit, Mr. Chairman?
Yep. So, just a point of clarification for me. I love what you said. This is not in disagreement with what you just process you just threw it out. But in fact, if the city council does de-appropriate money, that it would take another action to appropriate money, whether it's the fall winter's budget or something else. And I very much like this idea, and I think it puts discipline in the system and allows us to use revenue for other purposes that are more realistic. But just to be clear, if we make those decisions, it's a two-decision process. It's de-appropriate and then reappropriate, or then appropriate again.
Yes and no. If for a number of these projects, we would actually do both things at the same time. We would de-appropriate previous money and add appropriation in out years for what we currently expect that timeline to look like. So for a lot of those projects, you're actually going to see both of those things as part of the proposed budget. That's not universally true, but it's largely true.
Thank you.
And then the last question, I'm sorry, the last question I have for you, just as we're looking ahead to budgeting, obviously the council's to have those many others need to talk about our priorities. Is there anything that you guys are working on in creating the budget that is different under this fair or that we've done that's the past, what you think we should be earning?
I think that the biggest difference is one that there's a little bit of a difference of approach. We'll have to see how that plays out on the ground as we go through this process, but of having a much more explicit tie between what are the strategic goals of the city and performance in the departments, and then how that money gets appropriated. Those links are sometimes more easily said than implemented. Sometimes those links are less obvious than we wish they were. But I think having that is a much more explicit part of the budgeting discussion, I think, is the primary difference with this administration.
Yeah, yeah. That I think that's music to a lot of our ears up here, as you might know. Anybody got anything else?
I do. Mr. Chairman, and perhaps also you two, you asked for budget submissions from priority submissions from all the city council.
Oh yeah.
Can you give us an update on what was received, and then also, do we have an input into what happens at tomorrow's work session discussing the budget, and what is the agenda for that meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock?
Yeah. So, in terms of what's been received, I have them from all but one TAPSO member, and I'm talking with Leigh Tay to hopefully get that person's. They vary. Honestly, there's not as much overlap as I was trying to think there would be, but there's a lot of different things, which makes our lives a little bit more difficult. But I will say one thing that I saw throughout was sort of pedestrian traffic safety that was around the knocking for the bumps. And then as far as tomorrow, where I was hoping we would go is be able to discuss the things that overlap and then the things where we have disagreements. But it's a little bit more difficult if it's sort of all different. There's not as many overlaps as expected there to be. And so on that front, where I understand when the error is quality to with it is to just put out what your priorities are, what your top priorities are. Meaning, you said me 3, come with 1, maybe 2, so that we can have a better data sense of that prioritization for how he's very to me. And then I think also we'll have to try and grapple some with how you pay for it. To me, that's an important question that was not captured in any of the, I think, certainly not most of the priorities. So, get a little bit of an answer to your question. Part of the answer is we don't have an answer.
Yeah, it does get to part. Yeah. See, Danny.
I was just going to say, from my perspective, the other value of having that conversation is that you all come in with your own ideas, but that doesn't mean that everyone has sort of thought of everything, all the possibilities on the front end. I think the other reason to have the conversation is to have insight into what each other is thinking, because that may influence your own prioritization. Oh, I didn't think about that. Or in my priorities, my number 1 is still a priority. But frankly, I think you got a point on that one. That's probably a higher priority than my number 2, right? And getting a sense of the general consensus, I think has value for us.
So, I'm sorry.
No, I'll just say what you say is, excuse me, in the past has been more conversational approach, right? Just to set the stage from our standpoint, at this point, numbers, we don't have good numbers right now, right? With just our budget process, we're trying to finalize the act first, so I don't want there to be expectation number or any different numbers somewhere. We're just really a process. Really, this is more of a biggie set conversational piece between you all. Get ideas out there. Try and, Harry, I believe you led the effort last year, trying to really have the council come to a consensus of, all right, here's our top 3 things. So Just all around that.
Yeah, I would add that as the new guy, I very much appreciate the fact that I don't know enough yet to promise that I won't come in 3 weeks ago. I have a new one. But I do think there would be value in a piece of paper being presented for the work session that says this is people's priorities. So that, and I would like to see us move in a way that, just talking about myself, that drives me to make those decisions earlier. My experience if I come to you with priority earlier in the process, it's more doable. And from an outcome point of view, I would like to see us work to reduce the number of amendments at endgame. And the way to do that, I believe, is to drive the city council to make decisions. I mean, I have brainstormed with several people about the idea of actually limiting the number of amendments being able to be introduced by city council members that are not on your priority list. So if they're on my priority list and they don't end up in the budget, that could be an amendment that is being discussed there. If at endgame I come up with a brand new idea, it should get a little harder because it's going to take more staff work to determine it. So long way of saying that, Mr. Chairman, we could possibly either the staff review or I'll help if we want. But I think a piece of paper that says this is what everybody submitted, and however the analysis is done, that there's no crossover or whatever, I think would be helpful for tomorrow.
I will get you that later today. I've just been waiting to get everybody's game. But yes, I will make sure that by the end of the day and today, you have that piece made with everything.
The other thing that I would pass is, as part of that conversation, is in some sense what's behind that priority. My usual line to folks is, that people often come to us with their preferred solution, which we may or may not be able to do, but that doesn't mean we can't help them with their problem. We just have to figure out what the problem is. And so in some sense, the priorities of council have a little bit of that flavor in that all other things being equal, if I could have exactly what I want, this is what it would be. But from a budgeting standpoint, I don't know yet whether we would be able to do that, and having some sense of what's behind that request. How do you know what does meaningful progress look like? So that even if that is not something you could do fully, is there a way to honor the intent and to progress on the problem that you were interested in? So absolutely.
And I think that balanced solution of that is really important. I just add another thing I did notice in WhatsApp procedures. Sometimes the solution you guys brought forward can be solved by the budget, but the solution can be part of the budget, but early there is a way to solve it that does not have physical impact, solve a problem. So there definitely would be some things you'll look at. Maybe free to say, you works, you guys need to do that kind of thing. And then, you have something else on this topic?
I was just gonna say that this.
Yes. Wait.
Yeah, I would like to add, so I know when I submitted my priorities, finance script, I didn't have the numbers because I don't know the numbers. So I fully appreciate that. And I appreciate the discussion of what happens tomorrow, but based not on what I thought of 10 minutes before the meeting, but based on documents that I did. And I think, I'm a Maverick City manager, I think that goes to, why my first one is traffic and parking in Eastport, which I'm working with the direct public person on. We don't have scope of the challenge, but that discussion tomorrow will give you all the perspective that this is city council person's first priority. This is what we know, and based on that conversation allows you to say, okay, team, we need to do some work on this. it was his 19th priority. We're not going to do any work. We're not going to dig into that one. And this was her first priority, so we are. So I think that would be very helpful for tomorrow.
If we pause that I may, the critical piece of this too is having these conversations with purpose, right? And making sure that if there's been any failure, it would be in the application process, right? Making sure that we meeting directors, department directors have a voice in the matter, are brought in really enough to be able to talk through implementation of events. So I would encourage everyone as you have these ideas, please encourage department directors to show up to the meeting. So perhaps, you bring in department director as you guys university. Is it a reality? What does it take to get to the end goal that you want? That's just a huge missing puzzle piece.
Totally. Just all.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Whether they're here or not, he's up to the city manager clearly in the meeting recording. So, but going forward, I very much would like to see his finance committee, whether we call it testimony or what, but I would like to hear directly from the city manager, the finance director, and department responsible. Is this executable, to your earlier point? And I think will allow us to make a better decision. I watched again the process last year, and I would like to empower the city staff to be able to say, well, city council, that I can do that, but where the finance director say, the city manager actually testified to say we can or cannot execute that, or the intent of that does not match the money, or as the chairman was saying, other ramifications as we go through it.
One last thing I want to ask you about budget-wise, do we have any good way of getting insight into projections about our taxes? Like we're in FY27 will be the third year cycle. As we look to FY28, do you have any clue what that's going to look like?
Yes and no.
Well, if I assume we have any clues, and it's yes and no, then it's yes. So we can at least some.
Well, so from the perspective, right, it's a 3-year reassessment cycle, right? But there is some amount of reassessment that happens every year. City of Annapolis as a whole happens to all be done in one of those 3 years.
Right.
But the state is continually doing reassessments. And so Anne Arundel is phased across the 3 years. They get some amount of reassessment every year. The city's reassessment is not completely divorced from the experience of the county around us. So it provides some amount of guide in terms of what has happened. The reassessment cycle is a little bit tricky in that, right, it's always a measure from 3 years before to now. So it's a moving window. So you always have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt because we don't necessarily perfectly match what is the experience of the county. And our window is slightly removed in time from the last window that we have any data for, right? But that said, it does provide some amount of guidance. So part of the task of the budget team has always been to look at the information that we have, and this is a place where we tend to budget conservatively. I think for good reasons. Budgeting is one of those places where your error tolerance is biased. Right, you're not willing to be above or below. Right? You want your error to always be in in the benefit of the county direction, right? So you tend to do all of that conservatively.
I don't know if on the former home, that would be great. Yes, that was,
Yeah, I understand the frustration around the opportunity cost, but the downside risk, the risk of being wrong in terms of you don't have as much money as you thought you did. That's a pretty painful position for a jurisdiction to be in, and so your risk tolerance is not equal around true, right? Or around hitting it exactly, right? You're biased. So that was a long-winded way of saying it's not like we don't have anything. The income taxes are more volatile, and certainly the data that Jake and his team have presented before, it's more volatile now. It's always been a bit volatile. It's more volatile now than it used to be. So projecting that is difficult. I don't really see any reason for that to be getting better right now. For that volatility to be decreasing right now. My working assumption is that given everything that's happening at the federal level and given how close we are, to the nation's capital and all of that, my assumption is that will continue to be difficult to reject.
thank you. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to let that out, but
No, it did help. It gave us a framework. At some point, it would still be great to, like, here, what do we think things are going to look like at Flight to my King? But I think you gave us a framework for how that might be possible.
I'll just speak from experience too, and just say that if there's anything that you're thinking of that involves, us getting information on the seat earlier, we can do that, the better. Again, my experience is that it's quite difficult to get good information period from the state. So there's something you think about that you're thinking about. Let's show.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, basically what I've done is in FY28, it's basically be bigger or smaller than in FY27. But that's a very big question. Anybody have anything else before we wrap up? Yep.
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman, for you or for the city manager. This is a do-back question. Who is doing the agenda for tomorrow's work session? So your office, and do you get input from the city manager or from the finance committee or the mayor?
Topics are in Google Docs as an Google Doc that everybody edit so that they decide. And therefore, that is still the check it out. For the session itself, they decide.
So-
This priority. What's going on? I'll show you.
Okay, so all this, so just so I'm clear, while we still have over a year, there's a Google Doc that has inputs for specifically tomorrow's work session. I know about the the Google Doc that have all the city doc, with all the work sessions. But tomorrow, there's a Google Doc.
Not for specifically.
That's what I'm talking about, is tomorrow's work session.
I think the question that I hear you ask is there a detailed agenda for tomorrow of, we're talking about this and then we're talking about that? It's not just the broad topic, we're talking about budget. I think what I hear you ask is, what's the first part of that discussion? What's the next part of that discussion?
Yes, ma'am. I would think that somebody should be teeing up for Mayor Littman. Here's a proposed agenda for the work session. And I don't know if that comes from this committee or from you or from the chief staff or what, but I don't know what informs that.
It was my understanding that the format was going to be the mayor giving an overview, discussing and giving each individual older person the chance to talk about their number one priority, and then going back the other direction on the room for each person to give their number two priority with discussion. People that was the agenda. And I respectfully requested to remove the strategic plan for the fire department in the sense of time, so that we didn't have time to discuss the clock and we weren't rushed by the clock. So, and they do put that, which is fantastic. But I don't think that you asking for a very detailed agenda is beyond the fact that the mayor has an idea in his mind of how he was going to outlay the priorities of the council to discuss. And that was very much the way it happened in years past. Last year and the year before that, it was a discussion between the council and the mayor, with the mayor sort of giving the overlay, and discussion from the directors, specifically the city manager, finance directors, but all the other directors being brought in to, if we've got a director that's asking for, $5 million additional to what they already have in their department, they're going to be here to discuss that. Yeah.
My sense is also, and I had the same conversation with the mayor about how he was thinking about everything. I also don't want to over-program. I think part of the point tomorrow is for us to have a discussion rather than for us to have 20 agenda items that we check off the list. It's for us to all be together and actually work through something, which is the point of work session. So I think it's important we do not over-program. I'm sorry, now I'm off fear. But it's just more in the details of our program, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to overprogram. The agenda had 2 items. I mean, just to give an example, I'd rather not talk in and surprise Burke a little bit or any given brief. So it's so a new that question that somebody should be confirming with the mayor, whether that's you, Mr. Chairman, or the city manager, that the agenda tomorrow is 3 bullets. There's 3 items. A mayor overview, priority 1, priority 2. That would be good for me rather than spending 10 or 15 minutes with the mayor socializing what we're going to do. That's all. That's all. You got question. How do we make it most efficient?
Works for me. All right, I'll double check them there. Maybe you'll also check them there. Just make sure we're all on the same page. And it can go out when I send it out the prayers. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Adjourn.